So one of you had a question about what face work was as you stare at my stomach. So like I look decent, right? I mean, I've already complained about the lighting, which is funny about face work. I will give this to Riri. Thank you, sweetheart, for asking. That was my daughter. Sure. Face work. I've already complained about the light. Like first off, who cares? But that's me saving face. Like, oh, I look horrible because the lighting is bad. But Baylor, right? Yeah, woohoo, go, woohoo! White leg, crazy neon green shorts underneath. Shh, don't tell anyone. Let's jump into this. Functions. Remember these guys? Functionalists. For functionalist theory, there are three types of function. Manifest, it's intended. Latent, unintended. Dysfunction. Bad things usually happening here. So, manifest functions. So what is the function of the government? This is the U.S. Capitol, by the way, if you didn't know that. The function, the manifest function of the U.S. government, if I have these right from the Constitution, sometimes I'm wrong. Their Declaration of Independence, I believe, actually. To form a more perfect union, to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense, to promote the general welfare, to secure the blessings of liberty. What's stated. Those are the manifest functions. You wrote them out. You said, this is what's going to happen. This is who we are. This is what we're striving for. This is what we're going to do. Manifest. These are the intended functions of the government. What are some latent functions? You can already see. Something unrecognized and unintended would be political parties. Political parties, and if you go back and read any history book or you hear about it talked about often, were never intended by the government. And in fact, many of the founding fathers, we can have a fun discussion about that too, never wanted political parties. They wanted nothing to do with political parties. They thought political parties were the stupidest thing ever. How do people feel about political parties nowadays? Political parties are a latent function of the larger structure of politics. The manifest function was a more perfect union, justice, tranquility, defense, welfare, and liberty. A latent function are the political parties, the infighting, the stupidness that is oftentimes attached to politics. The dysfunction, let's take that one step further. Political partisanship, arguing, blaming, destroying friendships or families. You all have probably experienced this over the past couple of years. This is a dysfunction of our political system. Our political system was not meant to divide families, to cause people to argue and blame. It was to ensure tranquility and justice and peace and liberty. Manifest functions, latent functions, dysfunctions. Normally I'd have you watch a cool I believe it's Khan Academy video, but my computer doesn't record sound on my desktop yet. Sorry. Moving on. Conflict theory. Conflict theory is the next big theory. This is the picture we're going to see for conflict theory. Why? Because here we have arguably, a board, a group of people together, and what's right down the middle? A big rift is right down the middle between them. And so here we have our picture that's always going to be up for conflict theory. Excuse me for just 1 second here. Talking at 7 in the morning apparently is not my strong suit. So, as I have in my notes here, What maybe this might remind you of is some sort of conflict, some sort of disagreement, some sort of, I don't know, hostile takeover. If there's this rift down the middle, it's going to be very hard to get things done. And yet, that is what conflict theory sees, and that is what conflict theory really ultimately focuses on. Most of you know the person who kind of started, but he didn't really start it. That's the beautiful part. Like, his name's attached to it, but he had nothing really to do with it, with conflict theory, and that is Beardy Boy. That's right. Conflict perspective is a framework for building theory that sees society as an arena of inequality, where competing groups are in constant conflict, and only through conflict does social change occur. Social differences, rather than social integration, are the focus using this perspective. Remember, for functionalism, everybody worked together. Everything came together. Unity, cohesion. Conflict theory, no. We hate each other. We fight constantly. That's the only way things get done. Key concepts in the conflict perspective include inequality, power, competition, exploitation. You'll hear a lot about all of these when it comes to conflict theory. The key figure behind this perspective is Beardy, or Karl Marx, a philosopher and radical social critic. Marx believed that all conflict boiled down to economic conditions, to having wealth or not having wealth, to owning property or not owning property. His view was that those people who owned the factories exploited the workers in order to pad their own pockets and protect their privileged positions. His contributions to sociology are theoretical. They are not political. When we talk about Karl Marx, we're not going to throw derogatory terms around. I mean, he was wrong a lot, but we're going to talk about him as a social philosopher. I need you to understand that. Most people of the ELS Wells persuasion, when they think of Karl Marx, communism, I can't stand the guy. Just stop. He was a brilliant economist who saw problems with the society that he was coming up in and that he lived in. Remember our second video, whatever, all the smokestacks in England that was going on. That's what he lived through. He lived through so many people dying, abandoning their families. And why? So they could go work in a factory and be exploited. That's who Marx is. So we're going to look at Karl Marx. Yeah, we're going to say that he was wrong a bunch. There's no doubt about it. But he also had a lot of right. And we're going to pick up in a minute with one thing that he had really, really right. So I'll be back.